So of the 10 talks that I wrote between figuring out, being asked very kindly, hey Franz, would you like to offer a Sunday Dharma talk on X date? Yes, of course. Between then and now, of the 10 talks, this is one of them. And I hope it answers all of your questions on the subject matter, maybe that you didn't even know you had. And so it goes a little something like this. I want to present to you 3 quotes from the suttas, from the most ancient strata of the Buddha's recorded teachings. The subject at hand, as far as I can see, is views or view. Number 1, the Tathagata. Anyone here not familiar with that word? It's a beautiful word. This is a way that the old man would refer to himself. And one way of reading it, one way of translating it is the one who's like this guy. It's like a shorthand for me, but it's less personal. It's more, tata is a Sanskrit Pali word meaning this or thus, like this. He said, the Tathagata abides freed from all views. I have passed beyond bondage to, greed for, obsessions with, attachment to, and lust for views. Number 2, wise view, this is the very beginning of the Noble Eightfold Path that culminates in total liberation and release. Number 3, I do not say that one attains liberation by view. I also do not say that one attains liberation without view. Rather, it is only by taking view as a skillful means, and without grasping at it as an end to itself, that one attains liberation. So, it sounds to me like the old man is saying 3 completely different things. It's always important to remember that we're dealing with someone who lived and taught 2,600 years ago. And if we are to believe the traditional accounts, taught for 49 years. So you can imagine how many different audiences and questions and situations, even cultural language groups, etc., etc. So many different audiences. And of course, the Buddha, and nowadays this is popular too, where religious leaders, spiritual teachers will have special magical powers, apparently. Never in the lab, and never in front of the camera. But, you know, in private with small groups of people. But of himself, the Buddha would say, I don't have powers, I don't have these powers, but I do have a power. I know how to teach anyone. He felt that he was able to meet with total availability any questioner and read them and figure out how to reach them. So we have these 3 very different quotes regarding view. Definition. View. Noun. 1. The ability to see something or to be seen from a particular place. For instance, the end of the tunnel came into view. Or in our case, the end of class came into view. Number 2. A sight or prospect, typically of an attractive natural scenery that can be taken in by the eye from a particular place. A fine view of the coastline. Or as a verb, to look at or inspect something. You can view the famous hall with its unique staircase from here. Or, in regard to regard with a particular light or a particular attitude. Like the Sangha viewed the teacher's talk with great concern and suspicion, as it seemed like he was just vamping for time. Anybody got any other words for views? Perspectives. Very good. Nice. Rob? Opinions. That's a good one. Everybody's got one. Some of us got more than one. Prism. Ooh. Through which you can view something. Anybody else? There's some good ones. You guys named some really good ones.
Political views.
Political views. That would be a category of views. Yes, absolutely. Which, always end up involving what we feel like are our most deeply held values often. About right and wrong and justice and morality. I'd like to offer or include concepts, beliefs, belief systems, positions, and patterns of interpretation. Generally, you can think about views, at least for the purposes of this talk, as belonging to two categories. Kind of everyday views, like, I love the sea breeze, it feels so good. I want to live somewhere near the ocean as much as possible. And a philosophical view. Philosophical views, and we all have them, even if we think we're not terribly philosophically minded, we definitely have them. Now, in my time in the Dharma, I've heard a lot about views. See the above quotes, and there's so many more. They seem really important, whatever views are, opinions, etc. And in the vast 2,600-year sweep of the Dharma, people seem to have a lot of opinions about views. Shocking. Every tradition and sub-tradition, every school, every sub-school, every teacher, every student, every schism has an official view. And then each of those students and teachers and prospective students probably have their own ways of embodying, imparting, transmitting, and understanding these views. Now, some traditions place the accent on the importance of not relying on philosophical views. One particularly comes to mind, being ably and aptly represented by our dear friend Jokai Roshi. In fact, the Chan and Zen schools really place, at least to my experience, a real importance on not relying on views. And in fact, they have thousands and thousands of beautiful philosophical texts whose sole purpose is to invite you into not relying on philosophical views. Well written, beautifully researched, poetic, very helpful. Other traditions do the opposite. They say, oh, you have to get the view right. Just imagine if you're trying to take a journey. You have to know where you want to go, what it looks like, what are the signposts. And even Zen, with its great emphasis on not clinging to, relying upon, and falling under the sway of views, and even with its great and vast and exquisitely beautiful philosophical tradition. I mean, especially considering the great founder of the Soto Zen school, as far as we're under, as I was led to believe, Dogen Zenji, great writer. Zen always comes back to this direct experience of your life right now. And those schools that do the opposite and really promote the education of the philosophical view of the school. You spend years training and learning the Madhyamaka, Prasangika, Sautantrika, all these various schools and philosophies and traditions of debate and scholastic traditions, and it always comes back to what's happening now. What's happening now? and various other schools, and again, individual teachers do their own version, their own dance between these seeming polarities of relying upon the power of a philosophical viewpoint and the power of simply training now and now and now. Which still leaves us with the problem of what's the deal with views? Are they good or bad? What are they for? Why did the old man make such a big deal about, oh, I'm free from views. I have broken free of and will not again fall under the sway of views, of clinging to views. So, oh, I just remembered I have to make a little note. Okay. Okay, so now I need some tea. It's not working very well. What's happening? Oh, good thing that was empty. Almost like I was ready for that to be a little shtick. Oh, I have to put this down if I want... Oh, hold on. There we go. I understand what happened. My hand took up the pen, and the pen took up my hand. The freedom and openness and availability of my hand was constrained by this pen. But what a beautiful tool. I made myself some note that I'm sure makes sense. Milk to me. But under the sway of this pen, I was unable to bring the cool water to my lips. And what would happen if I kept holding it and wouldn't drop it for a week, a month, a year? It's silly, right? Nobody would do that. Nobody would cling on to something like that, that maybe was skillful at one point and is no longer so, and needs to be put down. That would be a real problem if I did that with my heart-mind, right? A real problem. This is exactly the issue with views. And why? Views, the way we see the world, the way we see ourselves. Is there anyone in the room here who has a story about themselves? Okay. Is there anyone in the room who has a story about the world? All right. These stories, I'm sure, in certain circumstances are incredibly valuable, profoundly useful. And in some circumstances, maybe not so much. You may have heard from this gentleman that everything is anicca. Everything is constantly changing. And everything is anatta. There's no solid self to be found. No unchanging primordial essence that's always the same. So in the face of understanding that you and me and everyone in this world and everything that we see and everything in our hearts and everything in our minds is constantly changing and lacking some eternal, primordial, solid essence. That would be a real problem if our heart and mind made these views, these stories, these opinions, these ways of interpreting experience that just kind of clung on and we never put them down. Views influence experience and vice versa. Have you ever heard of negativity bias? Has anyone ever, let's say my favorite field of practice, let's say you're driving and someone drives maybe a little too fast and a little too recklessly, and then you want to see who's driving the car. Oh, it's not just me. Thank you so much. And when you see them, do they look exactly like you knew they did? I mean, no, so right, when we're lucky, when we're very lucky, they don't look anything at all like we were sure they looked. And then we get to be like, thank you, thank you. It's someone who looks exactly like me. Or, you know, a human with 2 arms and 2 legs, etc., etc. Our stories, our views influence our perceptions and our understanding of the data that's coming in, and vice versa. Generally speaking, we are unreliable scientists. Our biases affect our data conform to our biases, etc., etc. Views, opinions, ways of interpreting experience are subtle. They're so slippery. I can't imagine anything more slippery and subtle and hard to grasp than the very ways that I interpret and experience data, information pouring into my six senses. They're long-lived and habitual. Generally speaking, the vast majority of us have really powerful experiences around love, safety, belonging, communication, attachment from a very young age. The great monk Tanisaru Bhikkhu says, generally speaking, we have completely worked out our relationship to pleasure and pain by the time we're 5. And in fact, if we were looking even further back, from the very first time we were a single-celled amoeba somewhere. Amoebas know you navigate away from pain and towards pleasure, away from environments that are problematic or troubling or painful or uncomfortable, and towards ones that are comfortable. Our bodies, our minds, our hearts are always striving for safety, for homeostasis. Also, views are sticky. Generally speaking, if I'm lucky enough to notice a view that I have about something, which again, as we previously stated, can be a little difficult. If I'm lucky enough to notice, oh, I have, based on previous experience, fabricated a view about a person, a place, a thing, a feeling, myself, etc., I very often will just swing to the polar extreme of that view that I identified. And maybe you don't do this, but maybe you have a friend who was like, that's it, I'm never doing that again. In fact, I'm only ever doing the complete opposite thing. And as we all know, swinging back and forth from extremes is a really good way to go through your life in a calm and wise and kind way. It's ringing a bell, something about the middle way between all extremes. I think I heard something about that. Also, again, views become invisible. If you've ever worn your glasses, looking for your glasses, for instance. And I tend to paint the world of my experience with the pigments of my views. This is something you can imagine. Remember, after his breakthrough experience, the Buddha was silent for 49 days, trying to figure out how can I possibly relate what I've seen, what I've understood. And one of the things in this sutta where he talks about this to his students was people are attached to and love their place in their world and the way they see themselves and their world in it. Bless you. Bless you. Think about how difficult it is. Has anyone here ever been told by a dear friend that what they're doing or the way they understand something is maybe not optimal? Has anyone here ever had a little bit of resistance to that? Don't come to me with that. I know what I'm doing. I hate that. That's the worst when I get told that I'm doing something or thinking about something in a way that isn't maybe optimal. Instant resistance. So, also the majority of our views that have, my views that have taken me up as I have taken them up, are emotionally charged, tied to and triggered by emotional activations, either in the past, in the present, or in the future. Which makes me even less able to impartially and clearly see what's arising. all these things work together to make actually noticing our views, our webs and networks of interpretation, of data sets that are maybe a little bit biased. It makes them really hard to notice. And in fact, it mediates the direct experience of us and our lives as they arise. And we're trained to do this from an early age. We sit in school, and if we're very lucky, we're a good student, and when the teacher asks the question, boom, we're ready with the right answer. And we are trained, and if we're a bad student, and we're staring out the window at a tree, or throwing balls of paper, or drawing, or whatever it is, and we're not ready to immediately regurgitate back the information that was asked of us. But if we're successful in school, it's generally based on our ability to take in this information and immediately feed it back. So we start to relate to our life like a tennis player, like a professional tennis player, just ready for the ball. Boom, 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 back at you, return, return, return. Instead of maybe a more receptive way of meeting our lives. And at least for myself, this has made it no easier. I've always got something to look at and read and learn and think about and get distracted by. So, what can we do? Interrupt the pattern. I like that. That's cool. How do we do that?
When you catch yourself maybe fixated on a certain perspective or view, question it.
Ooh, when you notice yourself fixating, clinging to, chewing on a specific view, opinion, belief system, pattern of interpretation, notice what you're doing and then just question it. Good questions to ask might be something like, am I doing a thing? That's one I like. Or I also like, am I making this weird? The answer is almost always yes. Or how about, do I have an idea about this? Am I making an idea? Am I fabricating some rule, some view about this? And if you are, great. Notice, remember that there's generally going to be some emotional activation around views and opinions, especially if they're important. Like things around love and care and respect and boundaries. And then when you catch yourself, like Heidi said, just question it. Is this true? Is this always true? Is there another way to see this? Is there something underneath this? So often, a lot of us, maybe especially males in our culture, are trained that anger will protect your tender feelings. And I think maybe not just men, but a lot of us, anger is usually protecting something more tender and scared. Something like a sadness or a grief. So, that was an outstanding strategy. Another way of looking at this, especially from a meditative perspective, is, oh hey, the way we sit isn't just for the cushion. Can I be spacious to, can I meet whatever is arising with kindness? Which is really hard when it hurts. And I swear, every day is a first time for me. Every day when I'm I could be doing anything at all, and I catch myself chewing on something, and it hurts. Usually the first thing I do is, I know what to do. I'm a serious meditation student. I prize calm and peace and rest and insight above everything. I'm going to fix it. And I put on my little cape, which is just a hoodie like a kid ties around. Watch me. And I start breathing, or I try to rationalize it. Hey, no, what are you doing? You know. But I've skipped a step. The most powerful step for me always, when I catch myself clinging to, being taken in by, chewing on, obsessing over a view, a way of interpreting experience, an opinion, a belief system, is just to notice it and name it and breathe into it. Something like, I guess this is sadness. I guess you're just sad right now. Or, this feels like anxiety. And I invite you, when and if you do this, to trust that your heart, mind, your body, breath are the safe containers for whatever is arising in your experience, in your heart. This is such a foundational to me. This is such a foundational thing to me about the practice, that it begins with the understanding that you, whatever can be said to be you, are the safe, spacious, vast, open, available container for whatever is arising. Rob, did you have something?
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to go a little rabbit hole or not, but yeah, I know you're pretty good with these. The idea of groupthink.
Groupthink.
You know, it seems to be human beings, when they want to accomplish something, they want to get everybody on the same page. The military going to war, fire and police departments trying to get their point of view across. Whatever it might, corporations, and they come up with the values. They try to teach you, these are our corporate values, and these are the way we're going to go. And it's like, who does this appeal to? And it's almost like, you know, I kind of look at this kind of chicken and an egg, because you're talking about an individual, and we're talking about a group. And when you start talking about views, well, if it fits my view, then yeah, I kind of do the group thing.
Yeah.
Right? But if it doesn't, I'm not following along.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you had any insight into that.
Oh, I wish I did, but I think that's a great point. The same foibles and fragilities and frailties that individual humans have, groups of humans have in spades. And generally speaking, this is the kind of, I mean, think about what we're doing here right now. This is, I mean, Sangha was ancient to the Buddha. You know, I mean, groups and groups and groups of Hindus and Jains and, you know, tribal peoples long before the Vedas gathering together. This is actually, evolutionarily speaking, humans' real superpower. No claws, no teeth, no armor, but we can work together. We can communicate. We can cooperate. And like everything, it has a shadow. And that shadow, an expression of that could be the groupthink. And again, what does it serve? It protects me, it keeps me safe. And you know, and usually, strangely, I've managed to migrate to and navigate to and find a bunch of people that feel exactly the same way I do about a certain thing. It must be right. And it just happens over and over and over again. But the foundational issues around ignorance, clinging, aversion, attachment to views are the same, whether it's me in my car, or at work, or a mega corporation, or an entire government, or a nation. It's, it kind of magnifies everything positive and everything negative, it seems to me. But thank you, great point. And that's why we're here. We get into this room, turn on some fans, have some tea, and sit together and practice this open, spacious way of being. So, on the subject of what do we do about our views, number one, don't panic. Number two, remember, open, spacious. This is how you actually are. Talk about views. The view from the meditative traditions coming from this gentleman are that your natural state, your original face, your ordinary mind is already that vast, luminous, spacious, infinitely hospitable awareness. And generally speaking, when things are activating, uncomfortable, or conversely, really attractive and soothing to a certain part of us, this luminous, vast, open, hospitable collapses around it. And then we chew and we reify. I chew and I reify. And I lose all perspective. So again and again, coming back to the original instructions, always. What is it like to be you right now? This instruction can be trusted. This reliance, again, remember these 84,000 teachings, and that's shorthand, 84 million teachings of the Dharma. And always it comes back to, what is this? What is this? And coming back to this open spaciousness. Now, I've been bad-mouthing views a lot because in the same way that the Buddha, the great physician, brought medicine for what ails us, and speaking for myself personally, my primary ailment is this dualizing, reifying, solidifying impulse to views, and then thinking they're absolutely right and never thinking about it again. And just living my life, and all my data and biases are confirmed. Since that is a lot of our primary disease, the medicine of, hey, watch out, you have a thorn in your heart, you have a problem, you have an issue, and it's this, and there's help. You can deal with it, you can practice with it, you can work with it. So a lot of these, this really strong medicine about being free from views, etc., is really important. But views are neither good nor bad. This is my little caveat at the end. Think about the views that the Buddha taught for 49 years. Think about the insights that you have had, that you have found to be true for yourself around spaciousness, around kindness, around openness, around not taking your thoughts to be you and 100% true. So just like everything is a tool, everything has its utility. The very first, the third quote. And that's how I guess I'll end this, and if there's time, question. But this quote from the Buddha, I do not say that one attains liberation by views. I also do not say that one attains liberation without views. Rather, it is only by taking view as skillful means, without grasping, that one attains liberation. So, your homework, just observe yourself, watch yourself. Am I doing a thing? Am I chewing on something? Am I getting activated? And then if you can find, sometimes you can't find it, but if you can find a kind of story that you're telling yourself, even if it's true, it's still a story, and just notice it. And ask yourself, is this true? Is this always true? Is there any other way to understand this? Is there something underneath this that needs my attention? And as always, the global, the universal, the constant instruction of meeting whatever is arising with that open, spacious hospitality that is the very nature of your awareness. Thus ends my prepared remarks. If there were any defects or misstatements, they belong to me. Anything true I stole from my teachers and friends, and I hope it served you well. Thank you very kindly for your attention.